for 2.5. Go ahead, Mr. Angus.
Well, to put this meeting in perspective, it was called to look at why the government gave $34 billion of taxpayers' money so your industry could massively increase oil production, which you're determined to do, massively increase fossil fuel burning in total disregard of science and Canada's global obligations. And I expected better, honestly. And yet you came here and both of you said not a single word about climate, not a single word. And when you were asked about it, you gave us this impression that you didn't really know, you didn't understand if there was any connection at all. We were all in this together. No, we're not all in this together. This is your industry doing this. And we have now 86 plus lawsuits coming in, Chicago, Colorado, California, about what you knew and when you knew it. So I'd like to ask you, Mr. McKenzie, I read you the California indictment. It's fascinating. I'm sure you should read it. It said the defendants, that's your industry, could have refrained from undermining the global effort to mitigate the impacts of GHG emissions or contributed to practical technical strategies that would have allowed them to continue their business ventures while supporting a transition to a low carbon future. Nah, you weren't going to do that, right? Instead, defendants devoted significant efforts to deceive consumers, deceive lawmakers and the public about the existential hazards of burning fossil fuels. And that you knew back in the 1970s and 80s the exact kind of catastrophe that our children are living now. And so here you are again. This is like the big tobacco moment. You could come here and you could say, you know, yes, we have a responsibility, and yes, we're going to mitigate. But no, you're blowing smoke in our face, saying you're not going to want an emissions cap, saying it's the public's responsibility to work with you if we want to lower emissions, and you won't even release your environmental reports. You're keeping them secret. Simple question. What do you say to my children and your children and our grandchildren that they're going to live on a burnt planet because you were too busy making money hand over fist to even come and do responsibility for addressing the crisis that your industry has caused?
Mr. McKenzie, I'll say just a short answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question. I think what we've said, Mr. Angus, and we recognize we're 25% of Canadian emissions, and we've given, through the Pathways Alliance, we think a path forward on how we can reduce that.
But you haven't reduced. You've continued to increase emissions. Everyone else has done their part.
Time
you
is
continue
up.
to rise, and it's a lot higher than 25%. So don't
I just want to get Mr. McKenzie to finish. Mr. McKenzie, in like 5-10 seconds, please wrap up.
I think the only thing that we were trying to highlight, Mr. Angus, is this is a very complex issue that requires not just environmental lens and perspective, but it also requires an economic, political, geopolitical lens as well. And we need complex solutions for complex problems.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie and Mr. Spruill.